Yes, yeah. I had my fair share of humble soup yesterday, Dan, so I am full and I don't want any more for the rest of the year.
Yeah, no kidding, man. It sucks because, like, what a fun day, true fun day Sunday out there at the Atlas Saloon. By the way, huge shout out to them. They were such gracious hosts for us and
Yeah.
to lend us so much of their space, especially since the crowd gets so rambunctious there. It was honestly like there was quite a few people there, and it was quiet as a church mouse while they were letting us, get through the
Yeah.
show. And then once that kicked off, music starts thumping, and the environment
Yeah,
really
yeah.
got to what it became for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But man, huge shout out to them. Big time bummer that the first show that we did out there ended up in an L, but definitely some
Yeah.
humble pie was served out to Chiefs Kingdom this week. And you know the sky's falling on social media. we need to
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need to trade for somebody right now. Like, there's all these overreactions that are coming out. We'll talk about more of those here in a little bit, but man, what a bummer for real.
Yeah, yeah, bummer to watch, man. That was a tough one to watch. Probably for sure top one or two performance, like worst performances I've seen in the Mahomes era. The Indy game kind of chalks up in there. The Super Bowl we lost to the Bucks. That was really tough to watch. But that was a tough one to watch yesterday, man. Sitting there at the Atlas, enjoying the game with everybody. Also, shout out and thank you to everybody that came out and
Oh,
supported us and,
absolutely.
and hung out and drink beer with us and kind of shot the shit. And so that was fun. And it's
It
always
was really
great to
cool.
have a circle of people there, supporting the show. So, but yeah, I mean, looking to the show deck here, Dan, looking at the Chiefs player of the game, recap, couple focal points on the position groups as we always do. AFC Landscape, and we'll get kind of dive into a little bit the AFC West and what it's looking like now after the shakeup we saw yesterday.
Yes, sir. Before we get into player of the game, I did want to ask you, do you know who won the chili cook-off? Because, like, we judged the contest. We were
Yeah,
invited to do that, you and I and a couple other folks that were there. And I know the chili I voted for, I think might have won, but they announced at halftime, and I had to go take care
yeah.
of something. So is that what ended up
It was
happening?
it was number one. I don't know who made number one chili, but I voted for number six to win it, and
Yeah.
number six turned out to be Troy, who cooks barbecue with Jimmy on the road. So
Oh,
I
nice.
thought
Well, I told
I
you that
thought
was
his
my
was pretty
second
good.
place chili. It had a really good smoky flavor to it. So,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
man.
Yep. Yep. So number one pulled out the dub yesterday, and then there was a two-way tie for second. So number six and three, I think, had the two-way tie for sixth or for second.
Three was my third place chili. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Love that. Well,
Yeah.
into our Atlas Saloon players of the game. Um, I'm going to go with George Karlaftis here. He had a monster day. I mean, the defense as a whole had a really good day.
Yeah.
Even though the
Yeah.
Broncos scored a couple of, Wilson threw a couple touchdowns, it was handed them on in short fielded situations where we were turning the ball over. So I mean, George Karlaftis, for him to come out and do what he did, 2.5 sacks, including a strip sack on Russell Wilson, to get us an opportunity to come back into the game with some time left on the clock in the fourth quarter, ultimately wasn't enough. Offensive side of the ball wasn't able to
Yeah.
get things going, but he made some key plays when it mattered, whether it was getting home to the quarterback, whether it was forcing him pressure on them, generating that strip sack, or sealing things off on the edge. You and I talked about one of the plays right before halftime there, where he was taking just a real bad angle, and then he adjusted and was able to get that running back out of bounds, and
Right.
then ultimately Drew Tranquil on the next play tackled Russell Wilson, and or tackled the ball carrier on that following play. May not have been Wilson, I can't recall, but they fumbled that ball out of bounds. We ended up getting the ball there in that situation.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of key plays that, if you trace it back to how we got in that position, was George Karlaftis really coming out. And I mean, the guy's pacing for 13 sacks on the season, which is pretty pretty great, a big jump from what we saw in year 1, and with edge
Yeah.
rushers, that's what you need, right? You need those guys to
Yes.
continue to stack those sacks up, get into double-digit territory, and now he has to maintain that level of play for the rest of his career, but, I mean, just seeing the jumps that he's made this year, I've been super impressed with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great pick for player of the game, and honestly, probably the same guy I would go with if I could. But I mean, for the sake of conversation, I'm going to go with Drew Tranquil here.
What a
Guy
warrior.
obviously stepped in and filled the role that Nick Bolton, left when he got injured. So he's obviously the glue and the leader, stepping right into the leader role on the defense, which is such a huge deal for that defense. Honestly, I kind of expected, more of a Justin Reed or a Chris Jones or somebody to play that role, but Drew Tranquil stepped up and he's been the guy for the defense. So he finished yesterday with 11 tackles. He led the team in tackles, and then he had that one sack as well. Defense did a great job getting to the quarterback yesterday. And as you said, overall, just a great defensive performance there. So I'm impressed with the defense still. Still work to do. We got a tough Miami team coming up, and then as we mentioned numerous times, we got a Philly team that we're gonna play here in just 3 short weeks. So got to get ready to go. This team's gotta be prepared to play the full length of a game, and the defense has to be prepared to win games like this when the offense doesn't come out, and if the offense has a stinker, they got to be able to hold their own as well.
100%, man. It's time to buckle it up. We're about to hit the
Yeah.
the gauntlet part of the schedule where we not only play the Dolphins and the Eagles like you mentioned, but shortly after that, the Bills, the Bengals who are coming back into form, they're going to be waiting for us as well with some big time seeding games being on the line. This being a loss to the Denver Broncos carries more than just divisional implications, which we're still pretty comfortable with the AFC West. I have no doubts about that and how that's going to end
Yep.
up. But with seeding, if we end up in a situation where right now it's a four-way tie in the AFC, we could find ourselves not carrying the tiebreaker for the AFC record side of things that can propel us into keeping that 1 seed or staying in
Yeah.
2 seed territory even. So those are situations that you have to constantly be aware of as you're kind of mapping out what the Chiefs' path to the playoffs is going to look like. But
Yeah. 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 That's a good
we'll
point. It's a good point. Something to
We'll
think
get more
about in the long run.
into some of those impacts too. So post game injury reports brought to you by Better Homes and Gardens and your wife Katie, who has been doing some phenomenal stuff in the Kansas City area with real estate and hooking people up with homes. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so she serves the whole Kansas City area, and she's able to. What she's able to do for you is be able to sell, help you purchase, help you build a home. She's helping a family right now build their dream home in North Kansas City, which is very cool. Family of 5.
That's
So
sick.
for a good buddy of mine actually. So I'm looking forward to that, and really she's just looking to serve the community, the Kansas City area. However she can through real estate. That's how she's looking to provide her services and take care of family and friends. So um, everybody's a friend when you come into the Lawrence house for some real estate
Love it.
help. So that's what she's doing. But post game injury report, Dan. What are we looking like there?
The linebackers are just taking a beating, unfortunately. God, man, we just can't keep a healthy unit out there. Drew Tranquil ended up missing a couple plays. They aren't too concerned about him. At least that's what Andy Reid kind of dropped on us in the post game presser. But with Willie Gay, that's the big question mark. Whether or not he's going to be able to turn things around with that tailbone. They are going to be traveling to Germany. I think the Dolphins leave tomorrow, and then we leave on Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, is kind of the rumor on the travel plans there. But Willie Gay, that tailbone injury, they're going to need to determine pretty quickly whether or not they think he's going to get up to speed and get healthy enough to see the field, or otherwise he won't travel with the team. With
Yeah.
these international
Yep.
games, it's pretty telltale early on whether or not somebody's going to make the trip and be able to see the field. So with Willie Gay, that's going to be the one to really watch. Um, just kind of looking at the IR as well, since we're pretty close to the trade deadline. Richie James been on the IR. There is rumors that the Chiefs are looking to trade him with the recent
Oh,
trade for Nicole Hardman. It seems that the room is a little bit crowded, which I think everybody knew that. We came into the season with 7 wide receivers. So that's going to be a situation that kind of plays out once he gets activated from IR. I could see that happening in the next 48, or I guess it'd be 24 hours from when we're recording this, to meet that trade deadline so that they can ship him out to wherever he wants to go from there, which I'm wondering if there's a situation where we just cut him,
sure.
if we don't find a trade partner. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. I'd love to see him get an opportunity in the offense, to tell you the truth. And he had about 600 yards receiving last year, and he made some meaningful plays for the Giants. And I was really looking forward to having him as one of those supplemental guys in the receiving room. So just a couple of things to watch on the injury side.
Yeah, very interesting point there. Jumping into the game here, Dan. This is going to be tough to get the words out. Talking through this game, but it's a must do. We got to do it, right? So that's what we're here to
Yep.
do. Again, props to the defense, man. Defense looked great. Russell Wilson only had 119 yards passing. I mean, total on the year, he's got what, 200, just over 200 yards passing on the Chiefs in 2 games. Pretty impressive. So, like we mentioned earlier, sacks. Defensive line, and I guess front 7 really got to the quarterback yesterday with 6 sacks. Javonte Williams only looking at 3.1 yards per carry for a guy. I mean, he took 27 carries yesterday, man. He was a workhorse, and we saw that when it came to time of play on the field. The defense just was on the field the whole damn game, and part of that goes into the turnovers that we'll talk about for the offense. But yeah, a pretty solid show out. But what do you think of Dan?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, we played pretty good ball. There's really just one criticism, or two that I'd have to say were the problems on that side of the ball. The first was just the ability to get them off the field, right? Coming out of halftime, we gave them 2 straight possessions where we had a 3 and out in between those two that lasted over 15 minutes total. So right off the jump, we're a couple minutes into the fourth quarter. The Chiefs have had the ball for all of 3 plays, and there was really no opportunity for us to turn anything in and get some more points on the board in that time frame, because the defense just kept allowing Denver to nickel and dime them down the field and extend that drive. So in those 2 instances, we became a bend don't break defense, where we were really just kind of letting them get those first downs here and there. And whether it was them getting a play that put them in a position to move the chains, or whether it was an undisciplined act from the defense that saw them earn a new first down that way, it was kind of a combination of the two for those 2 drives. And that ultimately, like, if you could chalk it up to what was the reason the Broncos were able to sustain that lead the most, I would put it to that particular situation. Now, there were a lot of other instances where the Chiefs offense faltered, and we can talk more about that here in a minute, because I'm definitely ready to get a little frustration out on those guys. But, with all of the undisciplined acts that we saw on the defensive side, we need, at the time when, they needed to be at their peak play, it was just a couple of things that really they also, in there, to be fair to them, didn't have a huge margin for error at that time because of what we were getting from the
Yes.
offense. But still, we just couldn't execute in those situations, and it just made it tough with a struggling offense to get anything going when when you don't even get the ball in your hands.
Yeah. A couple other highlights just to keep tacking on the defense here. Generated a turnover and blocked a kick. Man, that block kick was awesome. Coming off the edge hot. That was
Right.
such a cool moment. Anytime you get a block kick or a block punt, that's a really awesome moment. So that
Yeah.
was a huge play, and something you kind of look to change the tide of of the game,
And it
but
should have.
just couldn't get it done. Yeah,
It
yeah,
should have. And I don't
yeah,
mean to harp on the defense like that either, because they were clearly the best part about the Chiefs game that day. Like there was
yeah,
nothing more I think that they could have done other than getting those two drives kind of under control. Everything else, man, they were just electric, and they were able to get home to the quarterback and generate those momentum shifting type of plays that the offense wasn't able to capitalize on. So I know I'm being a little overly critical of those two scenarios for sure, but man, the defense, you still have to feel good about that. I mean, if you're pulling anything from this game, it's that the defense played really, really freaking well, and that's the kind of defenses that you want to take into the playoffs. But, that undisciplined style of play, that extended over to the offensive side of the ball too, right? We were getting penalties over there that would negate anything positive that we would get. There
yeah,
wasn't much, or we would have a terrible throw or a drop ball in key situations. Now, I'm not going to say there were 2 situations where maybe a flag could have been thrown. The MVS holding late in the 4th quarter where the guy literally
yeah,
had his hand in his pad shelf, and then the Sky Moore drop
yeah,
touchdown. If they call that there, it's ticky-tack in my mind, but I know a lot of other Chiefs fans and NFL onlookers were a little bit confused why there wasn't a call there, but ultimately it hit Sky Moore in the hands in that situation.
yeah,
Why were we dialing up a ball to Sky Moore on 4th and 3 when we need to move the chains, or 4th and 2 when we need to move the chains? I'm not entirely
yeah,
sure. It's possible that wasn't the first read in that play. I'm sure it wasn't, but the fact that we even are putting the game essentially in Sky Moore's hands is a head scratcher, to say the least, to me.
yeah. That was pretty frustrating. I guess watching it live, my first thought was, why are we launching the ball down the field?
Yeah.
But immediately after that, the thought is, dude, catch the football. I mean, you're
Yeah.
literally paid to do that, and
Well,
he doesn't do it very well. So, um, I there's been it's been pretty hot and heavy, today on social media with the calling for Sky Moore. I'm kind of with you. Here we are, 8 weeks into the season. He's on the team. Let's make do with what we got here and try to continue to develop the guy. And then if something needs to change, we can address that in February or March. So we got to keep marching along. The season's not over now. So,
right.
but yeah, what a frustrating play to watch, man. And just to kind of give an overview, kind of thoughts on the offense here. Last time Pat Mahomes hasn't thrown a touchdown in a game, 2019 against the Lions. We won that game 34-30. 34-30, and that man didn't throw a touchdown in that game.
Mm.
Tough,
It's
man.
frustrating for sure. I think that Titans game in 21 was another instance where he didn't throw that touchdown too. We
Oh,
put up 3 points, and those are just like those
oh
those
yeah,
those
like him.
games, those little random stinkers that we just come up across, where it's like Titans or the Colts in 2019 when we lose, 13 to
Yeah, yeah,
16 or whatever, that 19, whatever that final score was. Um, these little random spurts that we see from the offense, for whatever reason, has become part of the DNA within our Chiefs team, where we just have these random games that we choose to shit the bed. And
yeah,
with that, I will say the positive side of that is we typically bounce back really well. The next game after that, the offense tends to really get things going. It's almost like a wake up call, shake them a little bit situation where they kind of snap back into it. But with the way our offense looked, that was the most disheveled I think our offense has looked since Mahomes has been the starter. None of the receivers
Yeah.
looked like they knew what they were doing. Patrick Mahomes looked beat, and maybe that's the flu, which, you know, came out. He was
Yeah, he
dealing with
looked like
some of
hell,
those
man.
symptoms, and we just couldn't. We can't execute on third down with short yardage. We were 3 for 10 in third down. We went 0 for 3 in the red zone in that game. And when you combine those two scenarios, less than 50% third down conversion, 0% success in the red zone, and 5
Yeah.
turnovers, including a special teams turnover that gives them 9 yards of field before they get into the end zone, it's a recipe for disaster. If you were to go to the Elias Sportsbook and enter all 3 of those different criteria, I guarantee you, you do not find a single win in that scenario, unless it came from, like, the
Yeah, yeah,
1927, uh, Chicago Rams or something. I don't know who even would have been. That team was probably probably got guys like you and me on it. They had full-time jobs and would play football on the weekends.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. And I mean, we probably could have got beat by Ohio State yesterday, or a good solid D1 college team, man. That was pretty tough to watch. But you're right, man. We always have this one game of the year, and last year is Indianapolis, and everybody's kind of like looking around, like scratching their heads, like, what
Right.
the hell just happened? Same thing happened yesterday, and um, one thing that Coach Reed does great is hey, brush it off. Let's get back to work, and let's get back after the next guys. So if it is, if we do bounce back, what a better time to bounce back against a Miami team that's going to be competing against us for that 1 seed. So let's go ahead and knock on the door and knock those guys off the shelf there, and hold that tiebreaker over them, and put them down just a little bit more. So that's kind of where I'm headed, man. Let's turn around, get back after it.
Absolutely. Mahomes also got pressured quite a bit too, which was really frustrating. So, I mean, our offensive line, the tackles especially, are going to need to buckle up a little bit. Donovan Smith sacked him at one point in that game, just brick walled his ass. Like, it looked like a
Yeah,
basketball screen, just planted him right back there. So, I mean,
yeah,
just seeing that kind of like Three Stooges type of play. I think you talked about a pre-show where it was like borderline butt fumble or something.
yeah.
Like like that's just embarrassing.
It is. Yeah, yeah. You see plays like that, and you're like, "There's no way we can win this football game with shit like that, right?" Like, if we win this, something is drastically wrong with the Broncos.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not ready to wave the white flag on this team or anything like that. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm going to be critical whenever we're playing like shit. But when it comes to the big picture with this team, we're obviously still in a great position to secure a 1 or a 2 or even a 3 seed in the AFC. We're still in a great position, if not, you know, almost a lock still for the division. So don't take
Yeah,
this reaction from Trey and I as a sky is falling scenario, because there is still so much to be thankful for with this team, right? Like, we've seen a couple of flashes where the offense can get things going. They just need to string it along a little more consistently. And the defense is still doing what they're doing. But I think everyone is kind of looking at Matt Nagy being his first year full
yeah.
time OC. Where do you think, what's your opinion on his role in these offensive struggles?
Well, I think you got to take a look at big picture. I guess what is the fix? Who's going to lead the charge to do the be the fix? Who's going to fix the problem, right? And I think you got to start with Andy Reid is very involved in the offense, obviously, and so it's his football team. I think it starts there. But yeah, if you look at what's kind of changed over the last year, Matt Nagy's taken control of the offense, and he was the OC just a few short years ago. but completely different football team that we have now. And so I think it starts with Nagy. You know, where is the change going to happen? So, like I said earlier, this is the team we have. You know, we have like 12 hours left or 16 hours left on the trade clock, but the team we have now is the team we have. So let's find a way to fix the problems we have with the team that we have, and I think that starts with Nagy. And whatever those fixes are, I don't know, but it's gotta start with Nagy, and it's gotta start this week. The changes have to start this week. We can't take another 3 weeks to be able to fix what we just saw on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think for Nagy to really get involved, it's taking our concepts, rather taking our offensive concepts and putting them in a way that the receivers are going to better understand, and then just getting back to coaching on fundamentals, specifically when it comes to catching the damn football. I mean, the drops have just been ridiculous. The one bright, just to, we can transition into our focus groups here, and I'll start talking wide receivers. Like, this could be a good transition into that. The one bright light from our wide receiving group has been Rashee Rice. By far, the rookie has impressed. Everything that he's done from that position, I mean, you got to feel very confident about his ability to keep developing as a player there. And I'm really excited to see where he is at the end of the season compared to how he started it, just with the strides that he's been making in these 8 games. But even Rashee Rice has had some key drops, and he had one in this game as well. We could have converted. We could have converted and gotten a first down, extended that drive, and instead we end up with no points. So there's all these situations that come up with our wide receivers that just put us in such a bad spot. And it's not solely on them, because we can't really get the running game going a ton either, aside from some flashes from Pacheco here and there, which I was really counting on him. We're talking about Denver defense that is bottom of the league in running. So, not to go too deep into running backs, but they didn't give our receivers any favors, because we ended up having to rely on them for every key play at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And they've been a group that struggled thus far. So Sky Moore dropping the touchdown, we talked about that already with the contact, but the man should have caught it. The man should have caught the ball, hit him in the hands. He's a second-year pro. I'm done with the waiting for Sky Moore. I think at this point, he's a 4th string, 5th string kind of receiver. We give him some opportunities in the slot here and there. It's time to move on from the Sky Moore, the idea of Sky Moore being a wide receiver 2 or 3. I think that's I think that's where we're at right now. This was the straw that broke my back for sure. Moving Rashee Rice, who led the team in receiving yards from the receiver group, removing Justin Watson, because we know what to expect from Justin Watson, and he delivers on that expectation. So Justin Watson, we're expecting him to be that guy that maybe catches 1, 2, 3 passes. They're 120-yard pass, a couple of secured passes here and there, and he does just that every single game he checks in. He knows his role, he sticks to it, and he has some pretty reliable hands for the most part. So he gathered his own 42 yards on that play. Other than that, the rest of our receiver group, MVS, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and McCole Hardman, 6 receptions, 52 yards, 1 fumble lost. Okay, that is a subtraction. What the hell is the point in getting them the ball if they are going to hurt this team? McCole Hardman, maybe he needs some more time to acclimate to the system, get back, brought up to speed. He rode the bench in New York for a few games. I'm not saying he's going to come in and be a premier guy, Trey. Do not start thinking that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is McCole Hardman, they need to get him back into his carved out role, which is taking that role completely from Sky Moore and Toney and giving it back to him. If you remember the first 3 seasons that we had McCole Hardman, he had 400, 500, and almost 700 yards in that role and multiple touchdowns. Last year, he had almost as many receiving yards as Sky Moore and 3 touchdowns in a fraction of the games. So taking those roles from those guys and letting Hardman carry the reins for that particular type of role is going to be huge for our offense. And it could be a situation where he takes a couple home run plays, and at this point, I'll take 1 home run every 3 games because we've got none. I mean, we're playing freaking small ball out here. We're like the 15 Royals. So we need some
Yeah.
big plays, and he could be that guy that brings them. And it may not be a consistent basis, but give him some time to acclimate, and we'll kind of see what happens there. But MVS, Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, they have been a drain on this offense so far in the season, and I'm ready to either see more or see their way out. One of those two.
Yeah, okay. I'm not buying into the McCole Hardman train there with you, but he's a pro. He's been in the offense. He should be able to plug in. So I guess my expectations are a little higher for him to get back in the offense. I'm expecting that to happen yesterday, but hey, it is what
I'm
it
just
is.
not ready
He's
to
not going
set
to play
sail
a
on
substantial
him
role
being a
in it.
contributor
Oh well.
yet.
Okay. I'm ready to put Jerick McKinnon out in the slot and just let him be your wide receiver 3.
Well, you're not going to get an argument from me for that. Not at all.
All right, my position group. I'm talking quarterback today, not plural. There's only one quarterback we're talking about, and I'm bringing this one in with the Atlas. So as we've mentioned multiple times now, Dan and I were at the Atlas yesterday. If you get a chance, go back and watch the show for the pregame of the Broncos game.
Ton of fun.
Down at the Atlas, yeah, you'll be able to meet Keith on the show. Who's brewing beer down there at the Atlas, and they got I think 10 beers on tap at this point. It's a great atmosphere. It was a great atmosphere yesterday, and looking forward to doing that again in December. So, Pat Mahomes yesterday, man, tough look for my guy. But overarching, thought process here is that guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Brett Favre and those kind of guys all had bad games. Those guys weren't perfect every single Sunday. So, how many times have we seen Tom Brady come into Arrowhead when we were, 2-14 or whatever our record were when we were shit, 10 years ago, and he would come in and just lay an egg, and the Chiefs would beat them. How many times did we see that? So, and that's just us. That's just our view, right? So he's done it. It happens. Pat Mahomes yesterday went 24 for 38. 241 yards, 0 touchdowns. And as you mentioned earlier, 2021 was the last time we've seen that out of Pat. And then obviously he was not in good shape due to the flu. So just looking at him, he took his helmet off on the sidelines and they zoomed in on him. I mean, he looked rough, man. And
real rough.
And I feel that because I am the first person to say when I got a cold, I wear the man cold. You know what I mean? I got a little sniffle. I'm on the couch, bundled up in the blanket and got the hot coffee or the cocoa or whatever it may be. And I'm pretty much useless. But he was sacked 3 times for 28 yards, and then again, Donovan Smith. I mean, that play was iconic for me. Like I said, man, you see that on live during the game, and you're just like, we don't deserve to win this game at this point, if we got shit like this going on. So
it's a clown
almost
play.
Fumble status there. It is, man. It was a circus yesterday. So it's fitting. But yeah, Pat Mahomes he's gonna come back. He's gonna beat Patrick Mahomes. He's still the best quarterback in the league. He's still, 2-time Super Bowl winning champion, and he's still an MVP quarterback. We just had a slump yesterday. We had a bad game yesterday, and I fully expect him to come back and shred Miami's defense.
No, I'm with you there. It's going to be a lot more of an even playing field with them next week. Everyone having to travel out to Germany, and while they're getting Jalen Ramsey back, which is a big add for their defense, pairing him with Xavier Howard, I feel pretty good about our odds and what I've seen from Miami and some of those bigger game situations against other contenders, I feel pretty good about it, which we'll talk more about the Miami preview later in the week. I think we're going to record on Wednesday night and get that episode out to you guys for just in time for Red Friday. But let's wrap the show. I'm not ready to set sail on the Chiefs season just yet. Okay, but
Oh,
we still got a lot of this left to go, and we're in great position here. Um, so while this was a stinker, we just got to make sure we turn it around, right? The Chiefs, they got to make
yeah,
sure that they address those issues, tweak those things, because really it was a perfect storm of everything that's plagued the team up to this point. Like anytime we've had a poor performance in any game, you could chalk it up to one of the issues we've talked about, whether it's red zone efficiency, short yardage efficiency, the drops for the wide receivers. This was a culmination of all of those issues, and then we decided to dump 5 turnovers on it as well. So, while it's a
yeah,
bummer to break the streak to the Denver Broncos because that's always been so much fun getting to
yes,
talk down to them, you got to give them props. They were able to get it
yep,
done. So,
yep. On to next week, brother. On to next
yes,
week.
sir. So we'll go ahead and wrap the show up with this AFC landscape, just kind of looking at everything as we head into week 9 of the NFL season. It's brought to you by eCoffee, www.eeroastcoffee.com. KC Local Coffee Company, where you can order your beans that they're grabbing from all over the world, roasting them here in KC and shipping them out to wherever you need them. So whether you're listening here in Kansas City, Missouri, over on the Kansas side, or in your different state or country entirely, they'll make sure that they get those beans over to you wherever you need them. www.eeroastscoffee.com. Key matchups for week 8. We were kind of looking at Jacksonville. They end up taking the cake over Pittsburgh 20-10. Cincinnati, big time bounce back for them, getting the dub 31-17 over San Fran. That's
Yeah,
going to be one of those teams, man, that we knew they were going to get hot
watch out.
eventually. And now it's going to be, some fireworks on New Year's Eve when we play them. So they're sitting at 4 and
Yep,
3 with the Jets, Steelers, and Browns. They're all 4 and 3 division leaders. 3-way tie for division leaders, all sitting at 6 and 2. And then you got the Bills sandwiched in the middle there at 5 and 3. So a lot of those contenders, man. There's really only 2 games separating the Chiefs from the Bengals, who sit way down in what does that put them in ninth place in the AFC.
yep.
So not a huge gap there for those contending
Nope.
teams. And you got a couple other teams waiting in the wings. Chargers are down there at 3 and 4. You got the Titans and you know I guess just those 2 teams that we really have to worry about in the AFC. But um, a lot of football left to be played. And as far as the AFC West
Sure,
goes,
sure.
everyone that's not the Chiefs only has 3 wins at the moment, at least.
Yeah, yeah.
Raiders are
Yeah, it's
playing
gonna be
right now.
interesting to see how this pans out. Yeah, Raiders could go 500 here.
Yeah, they could. They could. I think it's I'll pull the old score up for those Raiders. It's 9-7 right now. So they just scored a touchdown with Josh Jacobs. So still very much in play for them to take second place in the division. Who would have thought that? Raiders would be in the mix for
Yeah,
second place in the AFC West. But just kind of looking at the AFC picture, man, it doesn't seem like there's really a runner. Everyone's kind of had a little bit of a roller coaster season, whether they started at a
yeah,
valley and they're getting to a peak, or they're drifting off of their peak and hitting a valley. There's just
yeah. Good
been a
point.
lot of ups and downs for everyone. I mean, the Bills lost 2 games straight before getting a dub against the Buccaneers. The Bengals started 1 and
Yeah,
3, and now they're 4 and 3. Jaguars lost 2 straight. Now they have the longest winning streak in the NFL. It's just been all over the place.
yeah, it really has. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kind of an odd 4 seed there, sitting at the top: the Chiefs, Dolphins, Ravens, and Jaguars. It'll be interesting to see how the playoff picture looks. At the end of the year, around Christmas time, it'll be fun to see.
Right. When it starts to clear up a little bit more, that picture does for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Well, I don't know about you, buddy, but I'm ready to move on. dust the old hands off and get ready for the Dolphins and start talking about some Germany. Be cool if we can get some Atlas beers ready for the next recording, but we'll see if Keith can maybe send some our way or not.
Yeah. Good call. That's a good call.
Hell yeah, man. Well, at the end of the day, it's always go Chiefs, Chiefs Kingdom. We're rolling with you all the way, and appreciate everybody listening and again for tuning into the live show on Sunday if you did. So thanks a ton, and we'll see you later this week.
Let's go Chiefs.
Peace.